Shalom, everyone. This is Rabbi Adam. Have you ever read the Lord of the Rings trilogy by J.R.R. Tolkien, or seen the movie adaptation that was directed by Peter Jackson? Whether you did it by book or by movie, it's an incredible series. But many people don't realize, of course, that there is an important prequel to the books. And if you don't know the full story that happens in The Hobbit, you miss a lot of really important things about the Lord of the Rings series. The same thing is actually true of this week's Parsha, Vayigash, which brings us to the penultimate portion of the book of Genesis. A lot of people tend to think of Genesis as the main book of the Torah. After all, it has some of the most engaging and most frequently read stories. It begins at the creation of the world, includes Adam and Eve, Noah, and transfers us all the way through our matriarchs and patriarchs, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob, Rachel, Leah, and all of their kids, grandchildren, and all of their trials and travails. But the reality is that Genesis really only exists as the prequel to the main part of our Torah. If you think about the time that the other books of Torah take up, starting with the Exodus story, it really only focuses on those famous 40 years, from the moment that the Israelites are let out of Egypt all the way to their journey into the Promised Land. Genesis, on the other hand, takes us from literally the beginning of creation of the universe all through the many, many thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years until we get into Egypt. That tells you that if it spends one book going through all of prehistory, but 4 books going through only 40 years, clearly it's those 40 years that are the most important. In many ways, it's the story that we will begin in 2 weeks with the book of Exodus that truly tells the main story of the Jewish people. Our master story has always been that we were slaves in Egypt, we understand what it is to be oppressed, and therefore, since God brought us out, it is our job to do what we can in the world to take everyone else who is dealing with oppression and help them out. Everything that came before that, the entire book of Genesis and the story of slavery, is really just a prequel to what our master story is to be. Indeed, it's this week's portion when we finally find out the reason that the Jewish people, or the Israelite people, were in Egypt. As you probably remember from where we were earlier, in the Joseph story, Joseph has come down and risen to become second in command of all Egypt, and his brothers, when we left them last week, had just come before Joseph, not realizing that they were in front of their own brother. Famously, in the story, Joseph runs away when he realizes that his brothers have repented their ways, and he comes back and says to them, "Hurry back to my father and say to him, your son Joseph says that God has made me a lord of all Egypt. Come down with me to delay. You will dwell in the region of Goshen, where you will be near me, you and your children and your grandchildren, your flocks and herds, and all that is yours, and there I will provide for you." That's how all of the Jewish people ended up in Egypt, according to the Torah. Everything up to that point is really just, well, prologue. So my hope is that not only do we fully understand what the plot and lot of the Jewish people are this Shabbat, but it gives us a great sense of anticipation for the main story coming in 2 weeks, when once again the Jewish people will encounter the Pharaoh who did not know Joseph, who put them into slavery for many years, and who ultimately saved and redeemed them, as we are to do for everyone. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. May your end of 2025 be bright and wonderful, and as my wife is fond of saying, may your best day of 2025 be your worst day of 2026.